Commander Ilara Nixhaven's heart pounded as the hostile alien vessel materialized mere kilometers from her ship. The Terran Alliance's fears had been confirmed. The Viridian Collective had breached human space. Weapons hot. Targeting solutions locked, announced Lieutenant Caius, his fingers hovering over the firing controls. Hold, Ilara commanded, studying the vessel's unusual configuration. The intelligence briefings hadn't mentioned the crystalline structures adorning its hull, structures that seemed to pulse with life rather than technology. Commander, they're hailing us, reported Communications Officer Vesa. Audio only, Ilara nodded, and the bridge filled with a sound like wind through crystal formations, gradually shifting into recognizable speech. Terran vessel, this is Navigator Zeril Ethervoid of the Viridian Collective. Our intentions are peaceful. Ilara almost laughed. 6 Terran colonies had gone dark in the past month. Peaceful wasn't the word circulating through high command. Navigator Ethervoid, this is Commander Nixhaven. Your presence violates Terran space. Helix protocol dictates immediate defensive action. Your colonies, the voice responded, something like regret coloring the otherworldly tone. We did not silence them. We have been tracking the entity that did. Before Ilara could respond, proximity alarm screamed. A massive vessel, utterly black and consuming all light around it, tore into existence between them. Pulsar-class destroyer, gasped Caius. It's Exarchate. The third faction, the mysterious Exarchate, had entered the game. Within seconds, both the human and Viridian ships were under devastating attack. Evasive pattern Delta, Ilara shouted as the bridge shuddered under impact. Return fire! Their weapons seemed ineffective against the Exarchate vessel's advanced shielding. Another hit rocked the ship, systems failing across the board. Hull breach, decks 3 through 7, Vesa reported, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. Life support failing. Ilara made a split-second decision that would alter the course of 3 civilizations. Open a channel to the Viridian vessel. Commander? Caius questioned. Do it. The crystalline voice returned, now strained with the sounds of battle. We hear you, Commander. Coordinated attack pattern. My ship will draw their fire port side, while you target their primary weapon array. A moment of silence followed. Millennia of evolutionary divergence and instinctual distrust hanging in the balance. Acknowledged, Commander Nixhaven. Moving into position. The dance that followed was beautiful in its deadly precision. The human vessel, despite its crippled state, executed a perfect flanking maneuver, while the Viridian ship's crystal projections focused energy into a concentrated beam. When the Exarchate vessel finally retreated into the void from which it came, both the human and Viridian ships were barely operational. They're hailing again, Vesa announced. This time the transmission included visuals. Ilara found herself staring at a being composed of shifting crystalline structures, vaguely humanoid, but with features that flowed like liquid glass. Eyes, like twin nebulae, regarded her with unmistakable intelligence. It seems, Navigator Zeril said, that we have been misled about each other, Commander Nixhaven. Ilara nodded slowly, suddenly aware that history was being written in this moment. Perhaps we both have. Their ships, now crippled and drifting, had no choice but to assist each other with repairs, enemies by decree, reluctant allies by necessity. Neither realized that within the crystalline navigator and the human commander, seeds of something impossible were already taking root. 3 solar cycles had passed since the encounter with the Exarchate vessel. The Terran starship Indomitable and the Viridian vessel. Crystal resonance orbited the uninhabited planet Proxima Theta, using its natural resources for repairs. Ilara watched as Navigator Zeril's crystalline form shifted and refracted in the alien sunlight streaming through the observation deck windows. Working alongside the Viridian these past weeks had challenged everything she'd been taught. Your species' adaptability continues to impress me, Zeril commented, their voice creating harmonic resonances in the air, a trait we Viridians envy. And your technological symbiosis is something human engineers could only dream of, Ilara replied, watching as crystal extensions from Zeril's form interfaced directly with the ship's systems. Their forced cooperation had revealed a startling truth. The Exarchate had engineered the conflict between humans and Viridians through elaborate deception and false flag attacks. Both civilizations had been manipulated as part of a cosmic divide-and-conquer strategy. The Terran High Command won't easily accept this, Alara said, reviewing the evidence they had compiled. Decades of propaganda won't be undone by a single data packet. Nor will the collective consciousness, Zerial admitted. Our elders have sung songs of human aggression since we first detected your radio waves. Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Caius, who entered with visible discomfort at Zerial's presence. Commander, we've restored communications. High Command is demanding a status report. Alara exchanged a look with Zerial. Tell them we're still assessing the situation. After Caius left, Zerial's form pulsed with emotion. If we reveal our discovery, we become traitors to our respective peoples. If we remain silent, we condemn them to continued manipulation. There's a third option, Alara said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. We find proof that neither side can deny. Their intelligence suggested an Exarchate outpost existed on the far side of Proxima Theta. Despite the risks, they assembled a joint team, 4 humans and 4 Viridians, to infiltrate the facility. The descent to the planet's surface was tense. Vesa piloted the shuttle while Zerial used crystalline sensors to scan for Exarchate defenses. Their technology operates on principles neither of our civilizations fully comprehend, Zerial explained. They harness vacuum energy in ways that defy conventional physics. The shuttle landed in a rocky canyon a kilometer from the suspected outpost. As they disembarked, Alara was struck by how seamlessly the mixed team now operated. Initial distrust had given way to professional respect, and in some cases, like her own relationship with Zerial, something far more complex. Remember, she briefed the team. We need irrefutable evidence. Data cores, communication logs, anything that proves their manipulation campaign. The facility was embedded into the mountainside, almost invisible to conventional scanning. While the Viridians distracted the automated defense systems with crystalline resonance patterns, Alara's team breached the outer perimeter. Inside, they discovered something far more sinister than expected. Vast chambers containing thousands of stasis pods, each holding what appeared to be hybrid creatures, part human, part Viridian, with Exarchate biotechnology integrated into their forms. They're creating an army, whispered Vesa, horror evident in her voice. Zerial extended crystalline appendages to interface with the facility's systems. Not just an army, these are prototypes for their final solution. Once humans and Viridians have sufficiently weakened each other. They replace us both, Alara finished, the full scope of the Exarchate's plans becoming clear. As they downloaded the facility's data, alarm systems activated. The team fought their way back to the shuttle, pursued by Exarchate security constructs. During their escape, Caius was severely wounded, saved only by the crystalline shields hastily erected by one of the Viridian team members. As their shuttle broke atmosphere, an energy weapon from the surface locked onto them. In that moment, Zerial made a decision that would forever alter their relationship with Alara. The navigator extended their crystalline form to encompass the entire shuttle, acting as a living shield. The pain was evident in the discordant harmonics that emanated from their form, but it saved the crew. Back aboard their ships, reviewing the stolen data, Alara found herself standing closer to Zerial than protocol would suggest was appropriate. The boundaries between commander and navigator, human and Viridian, were beginning to blur in ways neither of their civilizations would sanction. The joint fleet materialized at the edge of the Arcturus system, 3 Terran battleships and 4 Viridian crystalline vessels arranged in protective formation around the Indomitable and Crystal Resonance. After transmitting their evidence across both civilizations, Alara and Zerial had become the unlikely center of a growing coalition. Not everyone was convinced. The Terran Alliance had branded Alara and her crew as possible victims of alien cognitive manipulation. The Viridian Collective had similarly questioned Navigator Zerial's crystalline purity. Yet enough ship captains and colony leaders had recognized the truth to form this precarious alliance. Admiral Oryx of the Terran flagship Dauntless addressed the assembled commanders via holographic conference. Let's be clear. This ceasefire remains provisional. Commander Nixhaven's evidence is compelling, but your military hierarchies struggle to abandon established narratives, interrupted Resonance Elder Calix, the senior Viridian representative. Their crystalline form pulsated with barely contained frustration. While you debate, the Exarchate prepares. Ilara exchanged a glance with Zyril. Their relationship had deepened during the previous weeks, a development they had kept private. Cross-species relationships weren't explicitly forbidden, but the social and political implications were complicated. The Exarchate outpost contained tactical plans for a major offensive, Ilara stated, bringing the discussion back to immediate concerns. They intend to attack both the Terran colony on Europa and the Viridian settlement in the Cygnus Reach simultaneously. Forcing our fleets to separate, Admiral Oryx nodded reluctantly. Basic divide and conquer. The planning session that followed represented the first true military cooperation between their species. Tactical officers from both sides shared intelligence on Exarchate capabilities and weaknesses. Engineers compared notes on shield harmonics and weapon systems. Medical personnel exchanged data on their respective biologies, information that had previously been classified at the highest levels. After the meeting, Ilara found Zyril in the ship's arboretum, a space the navigator had taken to visiting regularly. The crystalline being stood before a flowering cherry tree, appendages extended to catch the spectrum of light filtering through the petals. Your organic flora continues to fascinate me, Zyril said as Ilara approached. Viridian crystal gardens grow according to mathematical principles. Your plants embrace chaos. Not chaos, Ilara corrected, standing close enough that her shoulder nearly touched Zyril's crystalline surface. Adaptation. These trees are programmed to respond to their environment, much like humans themselves. Zyril's form shifted slightly, refracting light patterns that Ilara had come to recognize as their equivalent of a smile. The coalition is stronger than I expected, Ilara admitted, but still fragile. Like us? Zyril's harmonic tones shifted to a more intimate frequency. Before Ilara could respond, an alert sounded throughout the ship. They rushed to the bridge to find Lieutenant Vessa monitoring incoming transmissions. Exarchate vessels detected at both Europa and Cygnus Reach, she reported. But the attack patterns don't match the intelligence we gathered. They're using different strategies. Zyril interfaced with the tactical display. They know we compromised their outpost. They've adjusted accordingly. Admiral Oryx's image appeared on the main view screen. Commander Nixhaven, your joint fleet will reinforce Europa. The Viridian Armada will defend Cygnus Reach. Ilara frowned. Admiral, that's exactly what the Exarchate wants. To separate our forces. It's the tactical necessity, Oryx countered. Europa has 30,000 civilian colonists, and Cygnus Reach contains crystal matrices housing 60,000 Viridian consciousnesses. Resonance Elder Calix added, we cannot sacrifice either. The coalition was fracturing before their eyes. Ilara glanced at Zyril, seeing her own concern reflected in the navigator's crystalline facets. There is another option, Zyril said suddenly, crystalline structure pulsing with intensity. The Indomitable and Crystal Resonance have been retrofitted with components from both our technologies. Our ships are now faster than either fleet. Ilara immediately understood. We split our joint fleet between the two targets, but the Indomitable and Crystal Resonance remain together, moving between battle zones to provide critical support where needed. Admiral Oryx looked skeptical. That's an untested strategy relying on experimental technology. Precisely why the Exarchate won't anticipate it, Ilara argued. Their psychological profiles indicate they expect us to follow established doctrine. After heated debate, the plan was approved. As the fleet prepared to divide, Ilara and Zyril found themselves alone in her ready room. If this fails, Zero said softly, harmonic tones subdued, the fragile trust between our peoples will shatter. Alara reached out hesitantly, her fingers making contact with Zero's crystalline surface. The sensation was like touching warm glass vibrating with energy. Then we make sure it doesn't fail. What neither of them knew was that among the crew of both vessels their growing connection had not gone unnoticed. Some viewed it with curiosity, others with concern. But as the ships prepared for battle, those private judgments were set aside in favor of survival. The coming conflict would test not just their military strategy, but the very possibility of human-Viridian coexistence. Europa's subterranean ocean glittered beneath its icy crust, human habitation domes visible as illuminated clusters across the surface. The Terran fleet moved into defensive positions as 3 Exarchate warships emerged from fold space, their black hulls absorbing all ambient light. Simultaneously, in the crystal nebula of Cygnus Reach, the Viridian vessels arranged themselves in geometric formations around their settlement, a spectacular latticework of interconnected crystalline structures housing millions of consciousness matrices. The Indomitable and Crystal Resonance, now partially integrated through shared technology, prepared for their unique role in this two-front war. Fold space calculations complete, reported Lieutenant Vesa. We can reach Europa in 40 seconds, Cygnus Reach in 53. Alara nodded, keenly aware of Zero beside her on the bridge, an arrangement that had raised eyebrows among both crews but had proven tactically advantageous as it allowed instant coordination. Europa reports Exarchate forces breaching the outer defense perimeter, Caius announced. And Cygnus Reach? Zero inquired, crystalline form pulsing with concern. The Exarchate is deploying previously unseen weapon systems, came the reply. They're targeting the primary consciousness clusters. Alara and Zerial exchanged glances. The expected dilemma had arrived sooner than anticipated. Europa first, Alara decided. Their defenses will fail within minutes without support. Agreed, Zerial said, though the harmonic undertones conveyed their distress at temporarily abandoning their people. The integrated ship folded into subspace, emerging amid the chaos of battle above Europa. The Exarchate vessels were deploying what appeared to be entropy cannons, weapons that accelerated the decay of matter at the quantum level. Target the lead vessel's propulsion system, Alara ordered. Fire hybrid torpedoes, the weapons, Terran warheads encased in Viridian crystal matrices that allowed them to phase partially out of normal space, struck with devastating effect. The Exarchate ship listed to one side, its entropy cannons powering down. Admiral Oryx is requesting assistance at the southern ice shelf, Vesa reported. Colony dome breaches reported. Before they could respond, a priority signal came through from Cygnus Reach. The face of Resonance Elder Calyx appeared, their crystalline form fractured and darkening in places. The Exarchate brought nullifiers, they reported, voice harmonics distorted. They're erasing our consciousness matrices cluster by cluster. Zerial's form shuddered visibly. Nullifiers were theoretical weapons capable of disrupting the quantum entanglement that allowed Viridian consciousness to exist within crystalline structures. We need to fold to Cygnus immediately, Zerial urged, all pretense of military detachment gone. Alara hesitated, watching the tactical display as Terran forces struggled against the remaining Exarchate vessels. Her duty as a commander warred, with her growing personal connection to Zero and the Viridian people. Lieutenant Vesa, plot an immediate fold to Cygnus Reach, she finally ordered. Caius, inform Admiral Oryx we must divide our attention. The fold to Cygnus Reach revealed a battlefield even more dire. The crystalline nebula that normally shimmered with billions of colors now had dark dead zones where nullifier weapons had severed the quantum connections between Viridian consciousness matrices. Their flagship is protected by phase shields, Zerial observed, interfacing directly with the tactical systems. Our conventional weapons can't penetrate. As they engaged the Exarchate forces, a terrible realization dawned on Alara. They're not just attacking random clusters. Look at the pattern. The nullifier strikes were systematically targeting the oldest and most complex consciousness matrices, the equivalent of Viridian elders and historical archives. "It's not just a military campaign," she said grimly. "It's cultural genocide." Ziral's crystalline structure darkened with something akin to rage. "We need to stop that flagship now." What followed was the most daring maneuver in the short history of human Viridian cooperation. Ziral extended crystalline structures throughout the ship's navigation systems, while Ilara interfaced directly with weapons control. Their minds, one biological, one crystalline, worked in unprecedented synchronization. The integrated ship performed a series of microfolds, appearing and disappearing around the Exarchate flagship, confusing its targeting systems. With each appearance, they launched precisely calibrated attacks against its shield generators. "Shield harmonics analysis complete," Ziral announced. "There's a fluctuation pattern we can exploit, but what?" Ilara pressed. "It would require channeling power through my crystalline matrix directly into the weapon systems. The feedback could shatter my consciousness structure." The bridge fell silent. What Ziral was suggesting amounted to potential suicide, risking their entire being to create a weapon capable of penetrating the Exarchate's defenses. Before Ilara could respond, another cluster of Viridian consciousness matrices went dark on the tactical display. "Do it," she ordered, her voice tight. Then more softly, "But you're coming back. That's an order, Navigator." As the Exarchate flagship prepared another nullifier barrage, Ziral extended crystalline appendages into the ship's primary energy conduits. The lights on the Indomitable flickered as enormous power was channeled through the Navigator's living crystalline structure. Ilara watched in horror as fracture lines appeared across Ziral's form, spreading with each passing second. But the weapon system indicator turned green. "Fire!" she commanded. The hybrid energy beam that lanced out from their ship carried within it fragments of Ziral's own consciousness, a living weapon guided by intelligence and purpose. It sliced through the Exarchate's phase shields as if they were mist, cutting deep into the flagship's nullifier deployment center. The resulting explosion rippled outward in strange, reality-distorting waves. The remaining Exarchate vessels began emergency fold space procedures, retreating from both battlefronts simultaneously. But on the bridge of the Indomitable, Ilara caught Ziral's crystalline form as it collapsed, fractures spreading throughout its once brilliant structure. "Medical team to the bridge," she shouted, cradling the dimming crystalline mass that contained the consciousness of the being who had become far more than an ally. Part 5. Between Worlds. The war room aboard the Terran flagship. Dauntless hummed with tension. 3 weeks had passed since the dual victories at Europa and Cygnus Reach, yet the atmosphere remained charged with distrust and centuries of ingrained prejudice. Admiral Oryx stood at one end of the conference table, Resonance Elder Calyx at the other. Between them sat Commander Ilara, her face drawn from lack of sleep and constant worry. "The Exarchate has withdrawn to the Perseus Void," Admiral Oryx was saying, "but our intelligence suggests they're regrouping, not retreating. Our crystalline arrays have detected unusual quantum fluctuations consistent with large-scale fold space calculations," Elder Calyx added. "They are preparing something significant." Ilara barely registered the strategic discussion. Her thoughts remained with Ziral, whose shattered consciousness matrix had been transferred to specialized containment facilities on the Viridian homeworld, Crystallis Prime. The prognosis was uncertain. Never before had a navigator suffered such catastrophic structural damage and survived. "Commander Nixhaven," Admiral Oryx's voice cut through her thoughts. "Your assessment?" Ilara straightened, quickly reviewing the tactical displays. The joint fleet performed beyond expectations. Casualty rates were 63% lower than projected for separated forces. The integrated technology approach is clearly superior. "Superior but unstable," countered the Admiral. "These hybridized systems lack long-term testing. What happens when crystalline matrices degrade within Terran computer cores? And what of consciousness bleed?" added Elder Calyx. "Already some of our younger crystals show concerning pattern alterations after prolonged contact with human thought structures. The subtext was clear. Both sides feared contamination, loss of identity. The temporary alliance was fraying now. That immediate danger had passed. After the meeting, Lieutenant Vesa approached Ilara in the corridor. "Commander, we've received a transmission from Crystallis Prime. It's about Navigator Zero." Ilara's heart seemed to stop. "Tell me." "The consciousness fragmentation has been stabilized, but full integration remains impossible. They're requesting your presence." Hours later, Ilara's shuttle descended toward the crystalline surface of the Viridian homeworld, a planet where no human had officially set foot before. The landscape below was a geometric wonder, vast crystal formations arranged in patterns that served as both city and computational network for the Viridian collective consciousness. She was met by a crystalline entity who introduced itself as Resonance Healer Nexith. "Commander Nixhaven, your presence honors us, though many of our collective find it unsettling." "I understand," Ilara replied, acutely aware of the crystalline entities watching her from various structures. "How is Ziril?" "Follow me." They proceeded to a circular chamber deep within the primary matrix hub. At its center floated fragments of what Ilara recognized as Ziril's consciousness structure, now contained within a resonance field. "The damage extends beyond physical structure," explained Nexith. "When Navigator Ziril channeled energy through their matrix to create the weapon, parts of their consciousness became entangled with the targeting algorithms." "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning that Navigator Ziril now thinks partly like your ship's weapon systems, logical, tactical, binary, and parts of their consciousness remain missing entirely." Ilara approached the floating fragments. "Can I speak with them?" "Communication is possible but limited. Approach the resonance field." As Ilara stepped closer, the crystal fragments pulsed with recognition. A harmonic tone emerged, weak but unmistakably Ziril's unique frequency pattern. "Ilara, you came." "Of course I came," she whispered, fighting the urge to reach out and touch the fragments. "I am incomplete. Parts of me scattered." Nexith intervened. "We've identified a potential solution, but it involves significant risk to both Navigator Ziril and yourself, Commander." The proposal was unprecedented. Using Ilara's neurological patterns, specifically her memories of and connections to Ziril, to help reconstruct the Navigator's fragmented consciousness. The procedure would require a direct interface between her mind and Ziril's remaining consciousness matrix. "The risks include permanent entanglement," Nexith warned. "Parts of your consciousness could become embedded within Ziril's matrix, and vice versa. You would remain connected in ways we cannot fully predict." Before Ilara could respond, alarms sounded throughout the Crystal City. Outside, the sky darkened as massive exarchate vessels emerged from fold space. "They followed you," Nexith accused, crystalline form flashing with agitation. "They tracked your shuttle," but tactical analysis quickly revealed a more disturbing truth. The exarchate had calculated that the Viridian Collective would be focused on healing one of their most prominent navigators, potentially creating a vulnerability. As crystalline defense systems activated around the city, Ilara made her decision. "Begin the procedure," she told Nexith. "If we survive this attack, Ziril and I need to be ready to fight." "The process cannot be reversed," Nexith warned. "I understand." As exarchate forces descended upon Crystallis Prime, Ilara was connected to Ziril's fragmented consciousness through a complex array of crystalline interfaces. Her mind filled with strange geometries and harmonics as Viridian thought patterns merged with her own. Simultaneously, her human emotions, memories, and cognitive structures flowed into Ziril's matrix, filling gaps, creating bridges between fractured elements. Outside, the battle raged. The Terran Alliance, alerted to the exarchate attack, had dispatched reinforcements, but they would arrive too late to prevent significant damage. Within the resonance chamber, something unprecedented was occurring. As Ilara's consciousness intertwined with Ziril's, their combined awareness expanded beyond either individual. Somehow they could perceive the battle outside in its entirety, Every ship, every energy beam, every strategic movement. We can see the pattern. They spoke simultaneously. Ilara's voice and Ziral's harmonics perfectly synchronized. The Exarchate attack has a mathematical weakness. Their merged consciousness reached out through the crystalline network of the city, connecting to defense systems and reconfiguring them according to calculations neither human nor Viridian could have performed alone. The Crystal City's defenses shifted, creating interference patterns that destabilized the Exarchate vessels. Phase cohesion. One by one, the attacking ships began to falter and retreat. When the procedure ended and Ilara regained separate consciousness, she found Ziral's form had stabilized into something new, still crystalline but with structures that resembled human neural patterns. And within her own mind, she could still sense Ziral's presence, a crystalline clarity interwoven with her thoughts. They had become something neither human nor Viridian, a hybrid consciousness that represented both the greatest hope for alliance and the greatest fear of both civilizations, the loss of purity, of distinct identity. As they emerged from the resonance chamber, they faced not just the aftermath of battle, but the uncertainty of their own transformed existence and what it would mean for the future of both their peoples. The grand chamber of the Nexus station hung suspended in space at the precise midpoint between Terran and Viridian territories. Its architecture was deliberately hybrid, curved human-style corridors opening into crystalline geometric chambers, technological systems blending seamlessly between the two design philosophies. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Crystalis, prime in the unprecedented merging of Commander Ilara Nyxhaven and Navigator Ziral Ethervoid. Their transformation had sent shockwaves through both civilizations, becoming both symbol and controversy. Today, representatives from both species gathered to formalize what had begun as necessity. The Concordat, a treaty not just of peace but of cultural, technological, and scientific exchange, awaited final approval. Ilara stood before a viewport, gazing at the assembled fleet outside, Terran and Viridian vessels arranged in a double helix formation. Her reflection showed subtle changes. Fine crystalline structures now traced her skin along neural pathways, glowing faintly with internal light. Beside her, Ziral's form had similarly evolved, still primarily crystalline, but now with more defined humanoid features and organic-seeming movements. Their consciousness remained partially merged, a constant awareness of each other's thoughts and emotions that had initially been disorienting, but now felt as natural as breathing. They fear us. Ziral observed harmonic tones mixing with a more human vocal pattern. They fear what we represent, Ilara corrected. Change, evolution, the unknown. Admiral Oryx approached, his expression carefully neutral. The Terran delegation is prepared to sign. Elder Calyx reports the Viridian collective has reached consensus as well. Yet you remain troubled, Ilara noted, sensing the Admiral's discomfort. Without needing to read his expression, Oryx glanced between them. The Medical Corps reports 17 new cases of spontaneous hybridization among crews with extended contact, some embracing the change, others resistant. This had been the unexpected consequence of their merged existence. The quantum entanglement between Ilara and Ziral had created a template, a proof of concept that human and Viridian consciousness could coexist. Prolonged proximity between the species now occasionally triggered similar if less dramatic transformations. Evolution cannot be contained, Admiral, Ziral said. The Exarchate understood this. It's why they sought to keep our species separate and hostile. The signing ceremony proceeded with the solemn gravity of history in the making. Each delegation approached the crystalline metal alloy table where the Concordat waited, a document existing simultaneously as ink on paper and as quantum encoding within a crystal matrix. As the formal alliance was established, long-range sensors detected multiple fold-space signatures at the edge of the system. The Exarchate had returned, this time with a fleet 3 times larger than any previously encountered. They've committed their full invasion force, Admiral Oryx announced grimly. Our intelligence suggests they've abandoned caution after our previous victories. Resonance Elder Calyx's crystalline form pulsed with concentration. Their attack pattern indicates a singular objective: the destruction of the station and everyone aboard it. In the ensuing chaos of battle preparations, Ilara and Ziril withdrew to a quiet chamber. Their partially merged consciousness had been working on theories that neither had fully shared with their respective commands. "The calculations are complete," Ziril said, crystalline appendages displaying complex mathematical formulations in the air between them. "It's theoretically possible." Ilara nodded, understanding instantly through their shared awareness. "But the energy requirements would consume both fleets' combined resources." "Yes." Their plan was audacious, using the unique properties of their hybrid consciousness to create a modified fold space field that would trap the Exarchate fleet in a dimensional pocket, removed from normal space-time and effectively neutralized, without destruction. "If we propose this," Ilara said, "they'll never agree. The risk of losing both fleets." "Then we don't propose it," Ziril finished. "We demonstrate it." Through their evolved connection to ship systems, Ilara's neural implants and Ziril's crystalline interfaces, they began reprogramming the station's primary energy distribution network. By the time Admiral Oryx and Elder Calyx entered the Miu chamber cautiously, witnessing what human and Viridian evolution had wrought, before them stood neither human nor crystalline being, but a harmonious integration of both. Ilara's human form now interwoven with crystalline structures, while Ziril's crystalline mass had adopted distinctly humanoid contours. "What have you become?" whispered Oryx, a mixture of awe and apprehension in his voice. "The answer," replied the being with dual voices, Ilara's human tones and Ziril's crystalline harmonics speaking in perfect unison. "The thing the Exarchate feared most." Elder Calyx's crystalline form pulsed with emotion. "You are the bridge." Medical teams from both species approached, but were waved away. This transformation wasn't an injury to be treated, but an evolution to be understood. As neural pathways and crystalline matrices completed their integration, the being that had once been two separate entities stood straighter, stronger. The Exarchate knew this would happen eventually, they explained, moving with fluid grace that combined human flexibility with crystalline precision. "Our species were not meant to be enemies but complementary parts of a greater whole. Our strengths address each other's weaknesses. Our different perspectives create a more complete understanding of reality." The news spread rapidly through both fleets. Reactions were mixed: fear, fascination, hope, disgust. But the undeniable fact remained: the hybrid consciousness had saved both civilizations from annihilation. In the days that followed, scientific teams confirmed what the hybrid being already knew. Human neural architecture and Viridian crystalline consciousness were surprisingly compatible. The animosity between their species had been entirely engineered by Exarchate manipulation. Without that interference, natural curiosity would have led to cooperation much earlier. 1 month later, the Concordat was expanded to include a controversial new provision. Voluntary hybridization would be permitted under medical supervision for those who sought it. Most would choose to remain fully human or fully Viridian, but the option for something new, something more, now existed. The being that had been Ilara and Ziril chose a new name for their unified existence: Harmonia. Neither fully commander nor navigator, they became ambassador between worlds, respected and feared in equal measure. As Harmonia addressed the first graduating class of the Joint Fleet Academy, an institution unthinkable just a year earlier, they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. "We were meant to be enemies," they told the mixed audience of human and Viridian cadets. "That was the destiny others chose for us, but we chose differently. We chose to see beyond our differences to the complementary nature of our existence. We chose love over fear, cooperation over conflict, growth over stagnation." Outside the Academy windows, a new class of ships took formation. Vessels designed from inception to accommodate both species, with integrated human and Viridian technology. The fleet represented not just military might, but the potential of what could be, accomplished when ancient enemies became allies, when difference became strength rather than division. The universe is vast and largely unknown, Harmonia continued. What other intelligences await our discovery? What other perspectives might enhance our understanding? The path forward is not one of isolation and purity, but of connection and growth. As night fell across the Nexus station, Harmonia stood alone at the observation deck gazing at the stars. Within their unified consciousness, the essences that had once been Ilara and Ziriel communed in perfect harmony, separate yet together, individual yet whole. The love that had begun as unlikely alliance had transcended physical form to become something the universe had never seen before. They were no longer meant to be enemies. They had become destiny itself. The Endlichs realized what was happening. The process was already underway. What you're attempting violates every safety protocol in existence, Oryx shouted over the emergency channel. The fold space calculations alone would require a hybrid consciousness capable of simultaneous quantum and linear thinking, Ilara interrupted. Exactly what we now possess. The viewports showed the Exarchate fleet approaching, their black ships absorbing all light, like mobile singularities. Defense systems engaged, but the outcome seemed inevitable. They were outmatched. At the center of the station, Ilara and Ziriel stood within a hastily modified chamber, their partially merged minds now fully synchronizing for the task ahead. Energy conduits from both fleets had been rerouted through the station to their position, feeding the unprecedented fold space calculations they were performing. If this fails, Elder Calyx warned, you'll tear a permanent wound in space-time. And if we do nothing, Ziriel countered, both our civilizations fall today. As the first Exarchate weapon struck the station's outer defenses, Ilara and Ziriel initiated the modified fold space field. Their consciousness expanded outward, riding the energy wave as it encompassed first the station, then the Allied fleet, and finally extended toward the approaching Exarchate armada. The sensation was like being stretched across multiple dimensions, while simultaneously compressed into a singular point, painful, disorienting, transcendent. Their merged awareness perceived reality from perspectives no single consciousness was meant to comprehend. Space itself seemed to bend and fold around the Exarchate fleet. The black ships distorted, elongated, and then vanished. Not destroyed, but displaced into a pocket dimension where they would remain, unable to harm either civilization again. When awareness returned to normal parameters, Ilara found herself on the chamber floor. Ziriel's crystalline form partially merged with her own body. No longer two separate entities pretending at distinction, but something genuinely new. The transformation that had been gradually occurring over months had completed itself in that moment of ultimate stress and power.